The second test match. Our coverage here on Sky Sports 2 will start at 3:45 in the morning. Play will start at 4. There's also test cricket in New Zealand. That first test between New Zealand and Pakistan was washed out overnight. They've extended the hours. It's now down to a 4-day game, weather permitting, and the weather forecast is good. That will start at 9:30 on Sky Sports 3 tonight. In terms of highlights today and the verdict, highlights will be at 2 o'clock. The verdict today sees Charles with Bob, Alex Stewart and Dominic Cork at 3 o'clock here on Sky Sports 2. And Nick and Rob still paying eager attention to what's been going on. Safe to say it's been India's day.
Yeah, I think so, albeit though, whoever won the toss, that's where you would have wanted to be, obviously. So when they won the toss and they batted, you thought, if you're a betting man, they'd be around 300 something for 4 or 5 wickets. So, look, very much India's day because they won that toss, and England have got to get wickets tomorrow because batting won't get any easier.
Maybe not. I mean, it's just a question as to how long this pitch holds up. A lot of speculation about that, which we can probably come back to tomorrow morning rather than now. I mean, there's the usual rules. Even if you do win the toss, you've still got to bat well. They lost 2 early wickets. So it's just that little bit of pressure when the two main men got together.
Absolutely, and it was a masterclass from both, actually, wasn't it? Pujara and, in particular, Virat Kohli. There was something predictable, actually, about Virat Kohli. Once Pujara got 100 and got out, you knew that Virat Kohli would be there at the end with somewhere around 150, ready to go again tomorrow. I mean, Rob's right. I think both sides would expect somewhere around 300 and probably not losing more than 3 or 4. They had a scare. They had a scare being 2 down, so credit to England for putting them under a little bit of pressure. But the class, really, of those two outed and really put England under pressure. How good a score that is will depend on the pitch and how it deteriorates. I mean, that may be a pretty decent score now if the pitch really breaks up. But I suspect if they get 500, that'll be an excellent score, whatever the pitch
just that last line from Cheteshwar Pujara was enough to give us a clue what they're thinking. When you start saying things like, well, we don't want to bat again, or we don't want to need to bat again, they're expecting a big score. They're hoping for a big score. They're expecting things to change and batting to get harder quickly.
Yeah, there was talk, wasn't there, that Kohli wasn't happy with the wicket in the first test. There was too much grass on it, so this one hasn't got any. And generally, you want to be batting on a wicket with no grass. You want to be batting first on it, and you don't want to have to bat again because it's going to get tougher and tougher.
Right, let's ignore that till tomorrow or maybe the day after. OK, time for us to take a break, after which we'll be looking at that masterclass innings from Virat Kohli and also hearing from James Anderson. Now, a word about the various sports you can see this weekend on Sky Sports 1. Saturday, plenty of rugby again. First of all at 2, England take on Fiji. And then later on at 5, Ireland against New Zealand. Sunday week, 27th, final Grand Prix of the season. That will be on air from 12:30 on Sky Sports F1. The performers on this first day in Visakhapatnam. Kohli finishing the day still there, 151. Pujara out for 119. And India very well placed on 317 for 4. I've got to say there was a certain inevitability about both of them getting hundreds. Pujara is in great form. Kohli loves this ground. His 5 previous attempts, I say attempts, successful attempts to bat on this ground, 118, 117, 99, 65, and now 151 not out. I'd safe to say he likes batting here.
He does, and he is great to watch when he gets in. And you just feel, as a captain, you always feel this as a player as well, but as a captain, he just seems to just have the bit between his teeth where he's just saying, right, I'm going to make, if I get an opportunity, I'm going to make it count. He dragged Pujara along as well. He never let the innings really just go nowhere and stagnate. He just kept up in the ante. He had a couple of moments against the short ball, but apart from that, he is a class act, as probably everyone knows, but he's getting better and better at Test cricket. One-day cricket, the best in the world. Yeah. Test cricket, there's a few people that could maybe take that crown, but he's not far away.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because in that previous Test match, he had to bat in a very different style to see it through. Basically, 49 not out at the end of the game, defensively, securely, making sure that nothing went wrong, didn't lose the game. So that was a very different sort of innings, which he said he learned a lot from. This is, as it were, back to normal.
I think he relishes being captain as well, David, the extra responsibility that gives him. I think that's re-energised their test team, actually. The way his enthusiasm, if you like, for test match cricket, it's not only rubbing off on himself and the way he's playing, but those around him, and you mentioned Pujara, they're dragging him along. So, yeah, I mean, he's a terrific player. Even in the shorter formats of the game, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, some of the big games, India, Pakistan, World T20, when the game being a very
So it
special
seems.
player.
And the other guy, Pujara, is turning into a bit of a run machine as well. This is the third 103 tests. Very good 101st test in Rajkot. Watch his father there. I don't think his family travelled to this one. They don't do that, but it doesn't make any difference. Just keep scoring runs.
I suppose it's fascinating, really, because both in India and England, you've got Pujara, who's a bit like Cook, the way that he goes about his business. Obviously, he bats three and he's a right-hander. Then you have Kohli, who's a bit like Joe Root, but this guy is just exactly what Cook is. He's an out-and-out run scorer. He just goes about his business. He is such a good player with spin as well, and you get the feeling, I think you said it right at the start, that once they get in, there's an inevitability about them, and that was exactly what happened. As soon as they got through the new ball, you just thought, right, here you go, hundreds for Kohli and Pujara.
I mean, he does seem to have expanded his game slightly, and there's talk about Kohli, for instance, influencing that, from being very much a compiler of runs. I mean, yes, he does that, but also he has a certain little added flair nowadays where he's playing a few shots that maybe he wouldn't have done last time we saw him a couple of years ago.
Yeah, fair point. And with that, hasn't created any extra vulnerability. Sometimes.
Was there anything there for you?
Yeah, not a lot. It was pretty flat. It's a little bit of uneven bounce maybe at times, but we saw how the two guys batted there. I think if you get yourself set as a batsman, then you can bat for a long time on it.
A little bit of a lift for you coming off there just with that wicket up to stumps.
Yeah, we were and ahhing whether to take the new ball actually, because the last few days when we've been here, there's been a big dew in the morning. So whether the new ball would have been better off in the morning when the guys have had a bit of rest, but obviously we felt 2 or 4 overs maybe with the new ball would be a good option, and lucky to get the wicket there.
Were you always struggling to just keep the run rate in check? Just thinking just before tea, they just got away a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's something that we kind of look at. When you lose a toss on the first day of a test match and you're in the field, we always try and stay under 3 and over. That's kind of something that we try and achieve. 270 in a day is pretty good effort, especially on a pitch like that, but I think they got probably 40-50 too many today. We didn't bowl as well as we'd have liked. Patches half an hour before tea, I thought they got away from us a little bit, but we stuck at it, and I thought we stuck at it really well in the field all day, and yeah, 4 downs, not the worst result for us, and we'll come back tomorrow, hopefully have a good day tomorrow.
It's been a while since you spent 90 overs in the field. How's the body?
It feels alright so far. I mean, it might be a different story at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, but feel good so far. Got through the day pretty, without any drama, and hopefully come back, have a good night's sleep, and come back fresh tomorrow.
Was it okay coming back spell after spell?
Yeah, I think it probably took me a little bit of time to get into the spells, a bit of stiffness as you go through the day, but once I got into the spell, I felt fine.
How was Stuart? We saw him limping around, and then he ran in quite nicely at the end.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a foot problem. He's been in the wars. He's got a bit of a graze as well on his arm, so he's nursing those at the moment in the dressing room. He did really well to get through the day. I thought we don't know how serious his foot is, but like you say, he ran him really well, and hopefully he can come back in the morning. He'll be fresh for us.
Pitch at Rajkot stayed together pretty well for the 5 days. Do you believe that's going to be the same, or is it more likely to fall apart?
I think there was more signs today that it's going to fall apart. There were times, certainly with the older ball, when it got soft, that it was going to keep low, maybe more than go through the top. So I think there'll definitely be some variable bounce as the game goes on.
Reverse? Much?
Not really. Like it did a bit. It did at times. The Pujara wicket came on the back of a bit of reverse swing, but not a huge amount. But it kept you interested.
Lush, though, isn't
it is, yeah. And the square's quite lush as well. There's nothing really to get the ball into the condition you need. But we got it reversing for a little bit, and anything lateral on a pitch like this is crucial.
Appreciate your time. Rest well.
Cheers, Wardy. Thanks.
Yeah, I think lateral is both crucial and very welcome, as it was at the end of the day there. Figures of 3 for 44 on the day. By far and away the best figures of the day. 3 out of the 4 wickets to fall. So, well, congratulations to Jimmy Anderson on his comeback. Right, more on Virat Kohli now. My men are at the cart.
Thanks, David. Yeah, we're just going to have a look at him against spin first of all. These are just a couple of the shots that he extra cover, hitting it with the spin, and then he has that real wrist break. Because he's got a high bat lift, it gives him his speed. We then see the other problem he got. This is his little forward press. He comes forward, then to go back, so he's forward to then go back. Again, the high bat lift. And I always wonder, where the people watch the ball onto the bat all the time. Now look at him here, look where his eyes are coming down here, there's the ball. So you don't always watch the ball onto the bat, not even Virat Kohli. We then see him using his feet, because not only can he play from the crease, he's also very good at using his feet. This is him to Zafar Ansari. Watch here how he, at this stage he has both feet up in the air. He doesn't cross over. He has a little tap of the heels, he's then away. Again, another high bat lift, eyes right on the ball. He's going to hit this right under his eyes. He doesn't get it in the middle of the bat, but just that intent that he has and how he's so fast on his feet. That's why he becomes so hard to play, well, hard to bowl spin to. Nighty, you've had a look at a couple of things he's changed, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's masterclass today, but it's fascinating watching these players year on year and how they develop and what perhaps they change with their method and their technique. My able assistant will press. And this was him back in 2014. English conditions, yes, and Anderson all over him. Things to look out for here. It's an unusual position, almost a crossover of legs, and the front leg pointing down the pitch, which is unusual, and exposing the outside edge. This is a common theme with these dismissals, if we just roll it on. Okay, English conditions, but you can just see even there, didn't get across to meet the ball, so very exposed outside the off stump with all these dismissals. So something for him to work on. I'm sure he was aware of it. Anderson all over him. Now let's make it relevant, because on the left now it's 2012 Indian conditions, and on the right today in that masterclass. And the things to look out for really, I think on the right today you can see he's just moved himself across the crease. So you can see he's setting up there, what, pretty much on middle stump, the end of his back toe, and here in 2012 he's pretty much on leg stump. So a conscious decision to push across to cover the line of, say, fourth or fifth stump. If we just roll it on, Rob, things to look out for again. On the right today, covering that line of off stump, and he goes through. On the left here, 2012, you can see middle stump, you can see off stump, and he's not quite got across, and that front leg, that front foot, is still pointing down the pitch. Tentative on the left, fully committed on the right. If Rob moves it on, much better position, isn't it? Today, that fifth stump line, slightly different length, yes, but the line is very, very similar, and a very different position today than to 2012. So he's had a lot of success today. He's obviously looked at one or two areas of the game that he needs to address, particularly with James Anderson, who was, had the better of him a few years ago. So a few thoughts here for you, David. India will hope that he's not finished yet and he can carry on batting well tomorrow.
Well, here's the man who can set the tone. He's already set it today, 151 odd out at the end of it. He's got as much time as he wants tomorrow, maybe even to try and double it, but that's a thought for tomorrow alone. Right, let's get some more thoughts from Visakhapatnam. Ian Ward is out there with friends.
A very, very good day for India, and a very, very good day, Michael, for Virat Kohli. I suppose it was coming for England at some point.
They were always going to feel the force of his bat at some stage, weren't they? He didn't have a particularly good series against England in 2014 when Jimmy Anderson was all over him. But it all came together nicely for him today. He's on the back of runs at the end of that Rajkot game, so he's feeling confident in form. He's got a wonderful record at this ground, actually, although this is not played a test match here. In one-day cricket, he's got a terrific record, and of course he won a good toss on an excellent pitch. He was in early because of those 2 wickets, and really he couldn't have asked for nicer conditions to bat in than he had today. And all that came together. He played superbly.
Couldn't have asked for a better partner either up the other end.
No, Pujara's a wonderful player. I think they combine well together. They've got a good record. I think that was their 4th 100 partnership in test matches. And he's a good foil for Kohli. I suppose it's a little bit like Tendulkar and Dravid in years gone by. You know, Tendulkar, as Kohli is now, is the big draw card, the man that everybody wants to come and see. What you need down the other end, therefore, is a guy who's perhaps not got a big ego, who's not going to try and compete, but who will get runs in whatever situation you find yourself in. And Pujara, that's his 3rd consecutive 100 in test matches. He's a terrific player. I think he enjoyed the fact that it was a slightly slower pitch there. I know he got 100 in Rajkot in any case, but he got rattled around the head 3 or 4 times there. There was nobody to do that here today, given Wokes, the quickest bowler's not playing, and the pitch much slower than Rajkot. You just nicely get on the front foot and stroke it around.
No demons in the pitch today, but when does that change?
Well, it will change, I think, more than Rajkot. It's not as firm a pitch, not as hard, and therefore it feels as though the top will go. How quickly is the key question, of course. If India get 450, I think it's going to be difficult for England. And we'll probably stay fine tomorrow, but if India can bat till tea time tomorrow, and then England, it probably start to go on that third day, so a very important toss. And as I say, I think it won't be as much as bounce as Rajkot, but I think it's going to spin more for sure.
How would you assess England's day with the ball then?
I'm not sure they got things entirely right. They dropped that catch, didn't they? Virat Kohli offered a catch, albeit a very difficult one, to Adil Rashid down at fine leg. You can quibble with Cook perhaps taking the pressure off right at the start when India lost a couple of quick wickets and Ansari was into the attack in the 40th minute. Having said that, I know a lot of England sides that would have struggled on that deck today. There was so little in it. No lateral movement, no bounce, no pace. Not much spin really. One spun sharply for Rashid after tea, but not much. The one thing I would say about England's spinners is on this slightly slower surface from Rajkot, what they really needed to do was bowl a slightly fuller length and get India coming forward. I mean, Cook set the field fine. He almost set a slip and catches in front of the bat, but too often I thought India's batsmen were just able to sit back and milk the ball off the back foot. So you could quibble with that, but again, it was a batting day today.
Jimmy Anderson said obviously they're buoyed by the wicket just to stumps off Rahane, but he was a little bit critical, a little bit disappointed that some of the pressure was released at times. I'm sort of thinking that period just prior to the tea break. I know it's flat, and if you're not taking wickets, you've got to try and remain a bit more in control, haven't you?
Yeah, as I say, there's plenty of England sides would have struggled on a day like today. But in terms of the spinners, too often the batsmen were just able to sit back and milk. The seamers were a little bit two sides of the wicket. So there were periods of the day, just before tea that you mentioned, just after lunch as well, where that control went for Cook. And of course he's a captain who loves control. He likes to kind of keep a clamp on the game. Not only did the wickets not come today, but the runs came freely as well.
A couple of problems for England. Obviously, they've still got 6 wickets to get. Broad was hobbling. Anderson's got through his first 90 overs for a while, so he's going to be stiff as well tomorrow.
Well, how he rocks up tomorrow will be interesting. Broad seems to have this issue with his right foot. He only bowled 11 overs today, so it's not been an ideal day for England.
Well, by the sound of it, various questions will need answering first thing in the morning. Fitness is one thing. Obviously, Anderson might be a bit stiff. Yes, Broad's got that problem that we can't quite assess from this distance. And the other thing that needs a bit of a crystal ball is the pitch. Now, Mike Allison is there, and he's thinking, maybe tomorrow it'll still hold together pretty well. That's kind of the worst case scenario, isn't it? Because it's good for India to bat on. But if it starts to go then, and England are starting their first innings, that's the worst possible way it could work for.
Yeah, England will be desperate for it to last for another 2 or 3 days. Well, another 2 days certainly, because as we see, India are going to get a decent score, but at the minute, because it is that little bit slower and the bounce isn't there, and often spinners, it's the bounce that makes it life hard work for as a batsman, and England have got a very good batting lineup. They're going to be under pressure though, because Ashwin will much rather this pitch than the one in Rajkot, that's for sure.
Is that a crumb of comfort then? Because if the ball's not bouncing as much, you've got the chance maybe to control your defence when needed against spin a bit better?
They need every crumb of comfort they can find, don't they? 317 or whatever it is for 4. Yeah, I mean, the commentators were talking about that, weren't they? Particularly the home commentator, Ravi Shastri, was talking about it's going to turn, but perhaps turn slowly, and that will perhaps mean 1 or 2 won't bite out the surface and bring in the short leg and the silly point and the leg gully. So it is a crumb of comfort. What is perhaps another crumb of comfort for England is the fact that the ball was moving laterally. Anderson will fancy his chances tomorrow to make the early breakthrough. And of course, as the guys were talking about there, Stuart Broad, if they can start well tomorrow and catch a couple of early wickets as they did today, then they may feel there's still a chance, but it is all eyes on the pitch.
Well, the ball is new, and it's 2 overs old, so the ball is new, and the question is whether it swings at the start of the day as it did at the end of the day. That's the one little thing again which they'll need to think about seriously, making it work first thing.
Yeah, especially with Jimmy Anderson there, we saw how dangerous he could be, and he got no real swing early on. You're absolutely right. So they just need everything they can. These crumbs of comfort we keep mentioning, whatever they are, that's what they need.
Yeah, well, crumbs of comfort, and they look back. I mean, crumbs of comfort are very handy, I tell you. But they look back as well to a first Test match where, basically they got it right. They had the best of the first Test match. You've got to take the confidence from that. All right, let's leave it there. Many thanks for those thoughts on day 1. News of the women. They've been in Colombo today. Different sort of day for them. Finished with rain. Nat Siver got the only half century of England's innings. They were 240 for 9 at the end of their 50 overs. And useful scores too from Danny Havel 45, Laura Marsh 36. They have been in trouble 50 off for 6, so that's a much better scoreline at the end of the 50 overs. The only problem for them in Colombo today was it then rained for the rest of the day, but they have a spare day and they will resume tomorrow. Now, other things to look forward to. Tonight, they're going to try and start that New Zealand-Pakistan Test match. It's officially day 2, it's now a 4-day game. So coverage there will start at 9:30 this evening on Sky Sports 3. We'll be back in the studio here tomorrow morning at 3:45 on Sky Sports 2, third day 2 of the second test from Visakhapatnam. And the tennis continues at the O2, day 5 now of the ATP World Tour Finals. So that's next on Sky Sports 1. Well, safe to say it's been India's day in Visakhapatnam. They've been led from the front by their captain Virat Kohli. He'll be back in the morning, as will we. We'll see you then.
Sky Sports Live. On all screens, on the go, and the best bits on demand.